In June of 1977, 21-year-old Jose Chico Romero, also known as Tito, was sentenced to 18 years in prison for an armed robbery he committed in Aiken County, South Carolina. Romero was from a town in the state called Graniteville, and he was sentenced to serve his time doing manual labor, living at the Anderson County Stockade. The building was used to house local inmates, but most of the work that the inmates did required some travel around the county. Romero was a heavy equipment operator. During one particular job, he had access to a truck. Romero had been a hard worker and model inmate for 2.5 years, and he saw an opportunity as the prison guards were not always paying attention to the inmates, especially ones who had proven to be reliable workers like Romero. On December 13, 1979, Romero, now 23, waited for the right moment when authorities were out of sight, and he took off in the county work truck heading southwest. Somehow he got his hands on one of the guards' shotguns and took it along with him. He ended up on Highway 72 in Hart County, Georgia, where he threatened 2 women with the shotgun trying to get some new transportation. He eventually ditched the truck and ended up at the home of a man named Charles Bolton in a nice neighborhood called Holly Springs. Romero stole Bolton's station wagon at gunpoint and took off in it, taking along some food in order to make his final escape from the area. The work truck would be found a couple weeks later on Georgia Highway 181 spur in Hart County. From there, Romero completely vanished. State warrants were issued and a manhunt began, but after he left Charles Bolton's home in the station wagon, his whereabouts were a complete mystery. Jose Romero had successfully escaped prison, and as the decades passed, he was completely forgotten about. Where he was, whether he was alive or dead, no one knew. That is until January of 2020, more than 40 years after his escape. It happened in Dover, Delaware. A man who went by the name Arnaldo Figueroa had an encounter with police after he was reported for loitering and trespassing at a convenience store on White Oak Road while he was publicly intoxicated. The man offered his identification, which did show him to be Arnaldo Figueroa from Delaware. The man was booked into jail, fingerprinted, then released. When the fingerprints came back, authorities were in for a massive shock. The man that they had arrested and released was a wanted fugitive who had escaped from prison in 1979, more than 40 years ago. It was Jose Chico Romero. Police immediately looked for him and found him hanging out again near White Oak Road. They arrested him and locked him up at Sussex Correctional Institution in Georgetown, Delaware, and added more charges to the original trespassing case: second-degree forgery, criminal impersonation, and being an out-of-state fugitive. Romero was extradited back to South Carolina to serve out the remainder of his original 18-year sentence. He was sent to the Lieber Correctional Institution in South Carolina and later transferred to McCormick Correctional Institution. Romero has been a model inmate who has received no disciplinary action and has taken some educational classes to earn credit that might help him get an early release. Before being caught, he had been living out his life in Delaware and had successfully done so from the age of 23 to 63. But after evading law enforcement that entire time, throughout his 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, all it took was one mistake in his 60s, public intoxication and loitering. And now he's back in prison, although he will have the chance to get out on parole in 2025, and if not, then again in 2027. One of the craziest things to think about is that the Delaware police initially let him go after the loitering charge, and Romero had a chance to escape again, but either did not think that they would figure out who he was, or just didn't have the motivation to go on the run again. Thank you for checking out another escaped convict video. If you enjoyed it, click one of the links above for another video on a similar situation. I hope you have a fantastic day. Let me know your thoughts on Jose Romero, and we will talk to you in the next video.